It was probably about 4 years in. I was definitely at my worst. I was close to bedridden, so I had weeks and months where I was definitely housebound and bedbound. Oh my God, this is actually the answer.
How's it going, Thrivers? It is Miguel here from CFS Recovery. In this video, I'm actually bringing a very special guest on. She's a part of our Thriver community. She's been in the program Recovery Jumpstart for about 2.5 months now, and she's been absolutely crushing it. The reason I wanted to bring her on is it's a really inspiring story. She's been dealing with this for several years. She's been making lots of progress. It has not been an easy journey, but she has that mentality, that fighter spirit. She's never given up, and she's always looking for solutions. I want to introduce you all to Nicole. You want to quickly introduce yourself? Tell us where you're from, a little bit about yourself, and how long you've been dealing with CFS for.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I am 40. I'm from Australia. I've had ME-CFS for about 6.5 years, going on 7 years now. And I started the Jumpstart program in June this year.
Yeah, so fairly new to the program, only 2.5 months, but we've been talking since I think the spring. So maybe 5 months. That's when you reached out to me. We talked a little bit on Instagram. You wanted to come into one of the previous programs, but we actually didn't have a time slot at that time. So I was like, you can watch the video modules on your own in June 2022. So maybe just take us back. Let's rewind the clock a little bit. How did you come down with something like CFS? Like, how did it all go down for you?
Yeah, so I feel like it's a typical story. I was very fit. I've been really fit all my life, really active, typical type A, doing everything at once. And we don't know for sure the trigger, but just the perfect storm, which again, very typical of this condition. I had EBV in my early 20s. So as most people know, that's one of the marker tests that they'll run for it. So I had that, but it hadn't been reactivated. I had the flu, and we also went to India, and I ended up in hospital with fluid on the lungs. And we think maybe that was the start of it all. I feel like I recovered, but my husband thinks that I never really was 100% after that. So that was probably the starting point for it. And then it all went downhill from there. First started noticing I just was fatigued. So I was going to the gym. I've been to the gym and boot camp. I used to do 6 days a week boot camp for 10, 15 years. So I was up between 4 and 5 every morning.
A lot. 6 days a week. It's like more than I was doing. Holy cow. On top of work and everything else you were doing.
Yeah. And some days I do double session. So I do the 6 a.m. or the 5 a.m. and then I do the next session or go back at night. So I was a little bit cray.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. I ended up just with the fatigue side of things. And that was, I had that for about 12. We got engaged. And for the 12 months leading up to the wedding, I just started noticing that I couldn't get out of bed, where normally my body was so used to getting up at 4 or used to getting up at 5 and going to the gym. It wasn't a struggle. Like my alarm would go off and I would get up, but I noticed that I was starting to struggle. And I just noticed that in class, I had no energy. I was just so zapped of all my energy trying to exercise that I actually couldn't exercise, which was so bizarre for me. So we started looking into it about 6 months out from our wedding. They referred me to an endocrinologist because there's lots of endocrine problems and issues in my family. And the endocrinologist checked me out and said, no, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just the lead up to the wedding. It'll just be because you're doing a lot of exercise and you're stressed and whatnot. He also said it's because you're getting up early. And I said to him, but that's my normal time. Nothing in my routine has actually changed at all. Like it's not like I've added in exercise. It's not like I've started getting up early. I've done this for 15 years. And he kind of just wouldn't listen to what I was saying. So I was sent on my way. And he said, you'll go on your honeymoon, you'll rest and you'll be fine. So we went on the honeymoon and it just didn't get better. So we had a month off. I lay by a pool for 4 weeks and it didn't get better. So that was the start of when I started thinking, hang on, something's really not right here.
Is this like year one with your illness?
Yeah. So this is about the 12-month mark. And then I happened to fall pregnant straight away. And I actually went into remission during my pregnancy. So everything completely went away. I had no issue. I had the easiest pregnancy. And then I had Frankie and everything came crashing down. And ever since the day I had him, it's just been the perfect storm. And it's just been brutal since then and getting worse and worse. And since I had him, everything escalated. My symptoms escalated from fatigue to everything else you can possibly imagine under the sun. The first 12, 18 months, so I struggled with Frankie and we put it down to having a newborn and and not getting sleep. However, he slept through. We were very lucky. He slept through since he was 4 months. It worked really hard to get him there. It wasn't easy, but we knew that the only way I was going to survive was to get full night's sleep. We were lucky in that respect, but I was getting worse, not better with sleep. And my sleep, although I wasn't getting up in the night, I just wasn't getting that refreshed sleep. So that's where the symptoms just started to escalate. And about 2 years ago, so it was probably about 4 years in, I was definitely at my worst. Everything.
Yeah. What was that like?
Okay.
Like, how bad did it really get for you? Because we've talked on many calls, but I think at your worst, you could barely just sit up in bed, right?
Yeah, so I would say I was definitely moderate to severe. For about 6 months, it had gotten so bad that we had a lot of discussions around me having to give up work permanently. And I was managing to work, but not anywhere near what I needed to be able to work at financially, but also to be able to do my job. I was close to bedridden, so I had weeks and months where I was definitely housebound and bedbound. I had really brutal crashes where I couldn't speak. I would actually lose my ability to speak, to move at all. My husband would have to lift me to the toilet. The inch of my body was so heavy and felt like cement. I remember lying there in the thick of a crash, and I remember I was trying to even move my finger, and I actually couldn't even move my finger. I could not lift my finger. It was so heavy.
Yeah.
And I had so much pain, and I've been lucky I don't get a lot of pain. I've never really got a lot of pain with it, except for when I'm in a crash. And when I'm in a crash, even like my fingernails and it's
horrible.
wild.
Yeah. It's like torture. Yeah. It's hell.
Yeah. And I just couldn't speak. It was like I had a stroke. There was nothing in my head at all. My mind was completely blank, and I actually lost the ability to know how to speak. Like I couldn't communicate.
Yeah.
And I remember lying there one day, and Dan used to do night shift back then, and he was about to go on a week night shift. And I was in a crash, and he came in, and it was the start of it, and I was lying in bed, and he looked at my face and just said to me, "Are you going to be okay?" And I actually couldn't communicate. I couldn't say anything back to him. I just looked at him and I was crying. I just started crying because that was the only way that I could communicate. And I didn't actually know what I needed to say, but I knew that I was in trouble. I was in real trouble. There was no coming back. And I had a couple of really major moments. That was one of them. And I had another one, not this Christmas, the Christmas before. 3 weeks before Christmas, I had a 3-week crash. And that was a massive eye-opener for me. That was really scary. That, I would say, scared me into not giving up and fighting and finding the answer, because I think we both thought at that point that I wasn't coming back from this. Was going to be the crash that there was no coming back from.
Those are so scary.
Here I am.
Yeah. Very different story, very different Nicole we see her today. Because I've had those times for sure where it hurts so bad to even just try to lift your hand off the bed. Everything is just on fire, and it feels like you're slowly dying. It's like a painful death, but no, you're still alive, but you're just feeling all the symptoms. And it's almost like this feeling of claustrophobia where your body is just like closing in on itself. So yeah, those are definitely some of my darkest times. Now for you, obviously you were trying many things throughout the years. What kind of things did you try to fix this? I'm sure you've tried a lot of stuff. Like, where do we start? Right?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like I probably tried close to everything humanly possible to try. I reckon we estimated we probably spent 30 to 40,000 in Australian dollar in probably 18 months to 2 years on medications and therapy and tests and all these different things. And now medication alone, like it's about $150 a week just on medication. And I was on probably 3 times as much back then. So
holy cow. Yeah, that adds up quick.
Yeah, it's crazy. So what have I tried? I have done so much. In the thick of it, I was doing IV drips 2 to 3 times a week. I have done, oh God, what have I done?
Everything.
Edit this out. Yeah.
It's like, what have you not done is the question.
Yeah, exactly. I've done acupuncture. I've done lymphatic drainage. I've done the drips. I've done all sorts of weird and wacky therapies and treatments. I've
supplements,
been on,
all that.
Yeah, CoQ10, all the antivirals. I've done modafinil. carotene, D-ribose, like all those things, magnesium, all these different types of things, mestinin. It's crazy the amount of stuff. Naltrexone. And the naltrexone was probably the only thing out of everything over the years that actually gave me something back. That actually got me, I would say, from severe to a functional state. But other than that, I've had no improvement and no success with anything. Money down the drain.
Yeah, pretty much lighting money on fire. But it's even worse than that, because every time your like hopes are so high, it's like, oh man, hopefully this works. This could be it. Let's pay. Bam. Next thing you know, like you're waiting for the results and like, I don't feel any better. In fact, I feel worse. Shoot, we just spent like a lot of money on this. So many people 100%. Can relate to that. Yeah.
Every single time. It's like every single time you wait for a miracle, and every time you feel like this is going to be it. Everything that you take and everything that you try, you feel hopeful that this is going to be it, and it's draining to constantly get nothing. Constantly feel no improvement, to constantly wake up and feel the feelings that we have every day, feeling you're still stuck in this body, you still have your symptoms, and there's nothing works. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. I think that's why a lot of people like really lose hope and almost just give up. It's almost like if you had a fireworks show, because I was actually at a fireworks show not too long ago, a few weeks ago, but it's like at the end of the fireworks show, that big firework shoots up and everybody's waiting for it. And you're waiting for that explosion, the beautiful sky, and then it doesn't go off. And you're like, oh man, okay, well, maybe the next one, another thing shoots up, everybody's waiting for it. They like gasp and then it doesn't go off. Like you have that happens in enough times, you're going to be like, okay, screw this. It's not happening. So you just turn around and go home. It's kind of like with recovery, it can get very hopeless sometimes because you're just pulling at whatever, reaching for whatever. But I'm happy to see that you finally started gaining some traction and digging yourself out of this hole and doing everything you can to find a solution. And one of them was Recovery Jumpstart. So why did you join Recovery Jumpstart? What attracted you to this program?
Yeah, so about 12 months ago, middle of last year, I was desperate. I was in the thick of it, and I had gotten to a point where I just thought there's no end to this. This cannot be my life. And everybody around me was telling me that there's no coming back from this. There's no cure. And you just have to manage it. And I was deep in the thick of it, thinking about giving up work. And something clicked. And I thought, one avenue that I haven't actually tried is this brain retraining side of things, and that's the only thing that I haven't explored. And I was so desperate. I was like, at this point, what have I got to lose? And Dan and I spoke about it, and he said, if this was a medication or this was another type of therapy, you would have no hesitation. We would have no hesitation. You would jump at the chance to see the doctor or see the therapist or take the medication. So why be hesitant to go down this path? So there's a place here in Melbourne that specializes in ME/CFS, and they actually do it through this theory of brain retraining and they call it CBT, so cognitive brain therapy, and exercise therapy that's not called exercise therapy. And of course, in the community, it's so frowned upon, and it's such a negative light around exercise therapy. And of course, I was on that bandwagon, but I was desperate. I was so desperate that I needed to try something. And this was actually my last resort. And I thought, what have I got to lose? I'll at least go and talk to them. I went and saw them, and what they were saying actually made a bit of sense. And I was like, yeah, let's see how it goes. So I started the CBT program. I did about 4 or 5 months of it, and I actually did start to notice a little bit of improvement. And it was probably the first time in 5 or 6 years that I did get some life back. I started the naltrexone around the same time. I think that was a good combination, and I definitely saw some results, but I also let it go. I didn't fully commit. I wasn't fully committed. I didn't 100% believe it, but I knew that I had seen some improvements. And so then we moved, and there was, again, the perfect stress storm. and I'd seen these results and then it came crashing down. And so I was in the thick of it again at the end of last year. And then Feb this year, it was my 40th in January, and we had a big family and friends trip, and we were all away. We did 2 weeks away on holidays, and I was lying in bed one day. I'd had a big couple of days, and I was lying in bed trying to recover, and I came across your videos. Something made your videos pop up, and I remember I was lying in bed. I was meant to be sleeping, but I came across one of your videos and I was just like hooked. Every single thing that you said, everything just clicked in that moment. For the first time in 6 years, everything you were saying made sense. The way that you explained everything was simple, and it just made sense to me. And it was like this light bulb moment. And I just thought, oh my God, this is actually the answer. And it was the same concepts of what this place the year before was teaching me as well, but you explained it in a way that really resonated with me. And I'd actually, middle of last year as well, again, I was in the thick of it and desperate, and I was looking for podcasts, and I came across the Chronic Comeback podcast. And that was also a bit of a game changer for me, because that got me starting to think, hang on, all these people have recovered. They're no different to me. What they're explaining is identical to what I'm going through. If they've recovered, then
it's possible, right?
Like,
it's
I can,
proof.
like this is actual proof that you can actually recover. And that was a massive turning point for me. And that's when I decided to go down the CBT route. And then your videos were just the Chronic Comeback on steroids. Like, wait a second. I felt like that kind of got me to a point where I was open to it, and I was open to going down this route. And then when I saw your videos, I was like, this is the answer. Yes, there is actually no doubt in my mind now. And I had doubt the last 6 months, but I was open to it. And that's why I was exploring it and seeing results, just small results. And then when I saw your videos and they made so much sense, I just thought, this is actually the answer. And there's actually no doubt in my mind anymore for the first time. And in the Chronic Comeback podcast, there was one, I think it was actually with Dan Newfer, and he actually said, and this sticks with me every day, I still think about this. He said, there's so many programs out there and they're all based around the same concept. And they're all based on this brain retraining, neuroplasty side of things, but you need to find one that resonates with you, and you need to find one that you're drawn to. And that's what I felt with yours. And I looked into a lot of other ones, and obviously the one that I did 12 months ago, I got a bit out of it, but I wasn't fully invested in it. And I learned things and I got the concepts, but they were just explained in a way that I was like, I just switched off for a lot of it, where that was the reason why I chose your program over a lot of others. And I did look into other ones, but I just felt that yours spoke to me, and the way that you explained things was actually all I needed to know. It was so simple, the way that you break everything down, and I didn't need to know all the other stuff. I knew it. I was told all the information, but it was actually just confusing everything.
It's extra noise, right?
Yeah. And I just felt like the videos gave me the information that I needed to know. And here we are.
Here we are. We're well on our way. And that's a big thing I like to really emphasize in the program and focus on, is I really try to make it simple. Like, some of the videos in the video modules, they're like 2 minutes long, 3 minutes long, and you'll hear me make a lot of analogies. I'm full of analogies on the calls. So I'm really trying to take this whole neuroplasticity brain retraining thing and simplify it. Because at the end of the day, it actually is a simple concept. There can be a lot of moving parts and a lot of mystery behind this whole thing. So it makes it seem very confusing. But that's one of my big things. It's like, I wanted to make this as simple as possible, because I know when my doctor explained it to me, he was making it foolproof. And I was like, that's what I need. And that's what these people need. They don't need to know all the ins and outs and like mitochondria, this and that. It's good to know, but it's not necessary to know in order to get better. So for you, what were your top two or three favorite things about Recovery Jumpstart? What would you say were the things that like really stood out and that caught your attention?
I think the number one thing was the community. So I think I love our group so much.
Yeah,
and
our calls are lots of fun.
Group,
It is so much fun.
Everyone in our group says it. Yeah. We're always like, I love this group. And that was the difference for me between a lot of the programs and this program, and even the one that I did last year. The one last year was one-on-one, which was great as well. And ours are essentially one-on-one, like you're in every call and you're there to support us and ask questions. But actually being in a group with other like-minded people, all typical type A's, very extreme type A's, and they're all actually feeling exactly what I'm feeling and know exactly what I'm going through, was a game changer for me on so many levels, to have that support and people that even on the days that you weren't feeling great, still actually dialing in and chatting to everybody. It actually lifted my spirits so many days, where I think that is, you don't get that opportunity in a lot of other programs. So that would definitely be my number one. Number two would be the content. So I think the content, like I said before, is explained in a really easy to follow way. And I love your analogies. I actually relate with them so much. My husband does that a lot.
Too many
as well.
analogies, way too many.
It actually makes learning so much easier and so much more relatable. And I think the difference as well was a lot of the other ones, the one that I did previously, so you have appointments, and we have the 2 calls a week, but they're one-on-one, and there's a lot of info being fed at you regardless of how you're feeling. So you've got an hour to cram all this information into. And that was actually what I was expecting with your program. But what I realized when I got into it was that it's all, the videos and stuff are pre-recorded. So you can actually work through it at your own pace. And at the start, I was like, this is weird. But then I realized it's actually really beneficial because everyone's at a different stage in their journey, and everybody learns differently, and everybody on a different day is feeling pretty rubbish. And if you have one day set and you've got an appointment at that time and you're in a crash or an adjustment period, and you can't actually take the information in, well, it's bad luck, the information's gone. Where I actually really liked that you could work through the program and work through all the content at your own pace. So if you're having a bad day, it doesn't matter, you can do it the next day. And there were some weeks where like I skipped a week, but I did majority of them before the program started. But when the program started, the later modules I got access to. But there were weeks where I wasn't feeling great initially, and so I hadn't done it, and then I would feel all right the next week. So then I'd catch up on the 2 weeks, but it gives you the opportunity to do that where a lot of other programs don't. So I think that is a lot different. And I think that's the benefit of this one as well.
Yeah, totally. I think our approach is very tailored, and we take into account the pace that most people are at. That's why we keep the groups relatively small, especially for the first 6 weeks, because if there are too many people on the calls, we won't be able to help everybody. And we want to be able to help everybody. Our goal is 100% success rate. We don't want to leave any single person behind. But yeah, just being on calls with other people, it's super, super impactful. And let's say people are having a lot of brain fog or are in an adjustment period during the call, then we also have the call replays, which people can watch back. So I think that's very helpful. What would you say is different now? Like, where are you at today versus where you were maybe 5 or 6 months ago? Because right now you're in a little bit of an adjustment period, but you were doing like 10 to 20 times more than you were doing like 6 months ago, which is remarkable. And it's super cool to see. There are a lot of like first times of things that you did in many years, but I'll just let you explain that. What are some of the things you could do now that was a struggle or nearly impossible before?
Yeah, so gosh, the list is endless. I have a life back. I have my life back to some degree. I'm probably, when I was in the thick of it, I'd say I was probably 10% most days. 20% was on a good day. When I started when I first reached out to you, I was probably about 30 to 40%. 40% was a really good day. I was probably sitting around 30% consistently most days. Now I would definitely be consistently sitting at about 80%. I actually was close to, I'd say even some days I was 90%. And I actually had a run of 3 or 4 days where I was completely symptom free, which was insane. So I definitely have a lot of life back. I'm able to work. I'm working close to full time again. I am exercising again. So we're in the thick of winter over here at the moment. And I'm in Melbourne, which is one of the coldest cities in Australia. So winter's not been actually, it has been a really good winter this year, but this week's actually really miserable. So I've been trying to do daily walks, and I've been doing pretty well, minimum of 30 minutes a day, but I built up to that. So that I built up over the last 6 months. I actually am now able to go on hikes. I've done 2.5-hour hikes out in the bush with no PM. I've had no issues at all, really no pushback from anything physical. So I'm pretty confident in my body physically. I started exercising in the last probably 3 or 4 weeks. I've started implementing an exercise program, lots of low weights and band resistant training. So I've just started doing that, and my body's been handling that fine. So starting to slowly get back into it. I'm able to help around the house again. So I'm doing housework. I haven't had until probably this week, but to be fair, we've had a pretty rough couple of weeks. We've had a really stressful couple of weeks. I probably was sitting, like I said, 90 to 100% better for about 2 or 3 weeks. And the 3 or 4 days where I felt completely normal and had all this energy, I didn't even wake up with that hit by a bus feeling. I thought, this is mind-blowing. This is crazy that this is how far I've come. Like, I'm normal. And I actually was thinking a couple of days, I feel like I could go for a run. And I actually am confident that I could have actually gone for a run, small run, and had no issue with it. I've come a long way. I've had a really stressful couple of weeks. My husband's been in hospital. My son's had croup. We decided to get a puppy in the thick of it. And I've had a lot going on at work and a few other bits and pieces. So I've definitely, and no longer symptom free. I've gone back probably sitting about the 80%, but the 80% is huge. I don't really have symptoms at all anymore during the day. The only real symptom I have now is the initial hit by a bus feeling in the morning. So I still get that, but even that is a lot less severe than what it used to be. And it doesn't last as long. Like, it used to last hours, if not the whole morning, where now it may be 10, 15 minutes. And then I'm like, fine.
Yeah. Your bad days now are way better than your best days before. So now you're at this new threshold. Like, we talk about this baseline, or the idea of a baseline in the CFS community. Your baseline is so much higher now, and you're cushioned for stress. Like, the amount of stuff you have going on in the last couple of weeks, it's like even a normal person would be quite drained doing that. I know I would. So the fact that you're still able to kind of function and you're not in bed or on the couch all day and wiped out from it is it's really like a true testament of how resilient your nervous system is now. Like, the fact that it can even handle all that stuff. One of those things is tough to handle, right? So it's in a pretty solid place now.
Yeah, I actually need to remind myself of those things. And Dan reminded me last night as well. I think he actually watched one of your videos about normal people wake up like they don't spring out of bed either. It's not. And I need to remind myself that sometimes. And sometimes it's a bit hard to determine what's a real thing and what's a MECFS symptom.
It's tricky. You're in that gray area now.
Yeah, like, I'm not sure, like, is this what normal people feel like? And so I was so used to, bounding out of bed at 5 a.m. or whatever. But that was 6 years ago. And I was super, super fit then.
I don't even do that to this day. If I had to get out of bed at 5, I'd be dragging myself to this day.
Yeah, exactly. And my husband does as well, like, even getting up at 7, like, he struggles. So I need to remind myself of that I'm probably close to feeling what a normal person feels most days. And I definitely have none or a very small amount of symptoms during the day, like super minimal. Now it's more normal person tired. If I don't get a good night's sleep, I'm tired during the day. But I need to, again, remind myself that like, Dan's tired as well.
Exactly.
The puppy's awake twice a night. We had a run, obviously, this week with everything going on. So the puppy was up twice in the night and Frankie was up twice in the night. So we were up 4 times in the night, and Dan was tired. So I was really tired that day. But then I was like, hang on, so I'm probably just normal person symptoms.
Oh yeah. You don't really realize how normal you are until you start hanging out with normal people. And when you're hanging out with them and they're saying, yeah, I'm so drained, I'm so tired. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm not tired. Well, you're tired. Wait a minute. Yeah. That means I have more energy than you. So I must be out of this thing now.
Yeah. And there's so many nights where I'm not ready to go to bed, or I've actually got more energy than Dan. And I'm like, wait, he's like really tired. And I'm like, oh, I actually feel okay. Like,
yeah, it's like the roles switched
that's
almost.
not happening. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. How impactful was it being on calls with other people like yourself? Similar situations, but being able to talk to people who kind of understand what you're going through. How impactful was that?
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the main keys that I think made all the difference in recovery. I wasn't actually sure going into it how that would play out. I wasn't sure whether it would actually be a benefit or it would actually work against me almost, but it was definitely one of the main factors in my recovery for sure. So the support of people that are going through exactly the same thing was priceless. The first session was very weird.
It was awkward. It was quiet.
Yeah. But I love our group and everybody in our group loves our group. We have so much fun, so many lols. And I actually really love the calls each week. So it was a big part and a big driving force behind actually being accountable and checking in each week and having those people to feed off. Max in our group fully recovered in 3 weeks, which is mind blowing. But having him in our group to bounce ideas off and to bounce questions off, and everybody in the group has improved to some degree. Everyone started at different levels in their journey and everybody to some degree has improved. So I think that says a lot, but it's actually been really inspiring to watch everyone's journey and actually see how far everybody has come. And I think I've actually done the course that I did 12 months ago. It was an individual one, so it was one-on-one, and it definitely had its benefits, but I would say that having group support far outweigh having a one-on-one sessions, for me at least anyway.
Yeah, totally. That's what I see as well. And that's what everybody says. They were like, yeah, we thought we wanted to do one-on-one before, but this group thing, it's way better, because then other people are asking questions that you might be thinking that you forget to ask. Or sometimes if it's one-on-one, like it's just a different dynamic versus in a group setting, it's a lot more relaxed. It's a lot more casual. People are more comfortable. You feel like you actually are hanging out with friends while recovering. It's really cool to see people around you progressing, and some people progress faster than others, but everybody's trying to pull everybody else up with them. It feels like you're part of a team versus you're on this journey alone. I think that's one of the biggest things.
Yeah, I agree.
What would you say is different now than before you joined in terms of just like how you view symptoms, or even just like mentally, what kind of differences are there now, knowing what you know?
Yeah, so when I started, I probably started this journey really fully committing when I first saw your videos back in Feb. And I'd already was implementing some things that I'd learned just off the videos. So I'd improved by the time I started the course, and I started the program prior to actually joining the program. I got access, as you would know, to the content. So you gave me access to some of it beforehand so that I could learn it and study going into it. So I had improved already slightly just from implementing those things that I learned going into the program. Most days my symptoms weren't brutal. I was probably moderate in terms of CFS. Now, since starting the program, probably I sit about 80% most days. I've had consistent runs of 0 symptoms at all. I had a really good run of about a week, about a month ago, where I was actually symptom-free. I was full of energy, ready to go for a run, but some outside factors came into it and I've definitely lost that a little bit. So I'm sitting comfortably at about 80%. So my symptoms are very, very mild now. I don't really have a lot of symptoms during the day. I can work a full work day relatively fine. I still have the hit by bus feeling in the morning, but that's about it. I'm living my relatively normal life. Getting back into exercise and all that type of thing. So definitely, I would say significant improvement since starting the program. I think just having the twice weekly calls and having everybody else to bounce off. And it's almost like you said, like it's a real team vibe. And so you don't want to let the team down. And so you kind of commit to all these things that you need to do and put in place because you don't want to let the team down. And each week you're like, well, where are you? Where are you? How are you going? Like,
you want to show up with wins, right?
Yeah,
you want to show
totally.
up with wins.
Yeah, totally. And I really love that. And I think without that, then I probably wouldn't be where I am. But it's also taken a lot of commitment for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of sacrifices. So I've had to make a lot of sacrifices in the last, I would say, 6 months to get to where I am. It's a short-term pain, long-term gain.
Exactly.
And it's definitely paid off. So it's not forever, and it hasn't been forever. So it's definitely paid off now.
Yeah. And I think I saw in your story just the other day, did you walk like 7 miles or something, or how far was that?
Yeah, so I'm now comfortably walking basically as far as I want. So I've done a
You
couple
don't
of
have
two
to,
and a half.
you don't have to think about it twice, right?
Yeah. We went hiking up in the mountains a few weeks ago. So that was about 2.5 hours of walking, and I had no issue. Got back in the car and felt. And then we actually went out for dinner that night. So I was tired, but I was normal person tired, and I hadn't felt normal person tired in probably 6 years. So it was nice to get in the car and be like, oh, hang on. I had no symptoms at all, but I just felt tired, and with good reason, because I just walked for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So I went home and I had a sleep for, I don't know, an hour or something. Woke up and I was fine. We went out to dinner that night and with some friends, and it was actually a really like loud environment, and I was fine, and woke up the next day and was fine. I've had quite a few of those days. We try, and when the it's middle of winter here at the moment, so it's a bit difficult, but when the days are a bit nicer, we try and go on hikes. We went a few weeks before that and did another, I think, about 2 hours. So yeah, I definitely don't have any issue with the physical stuff anymore. I've started exercising or incorporating resistance training, really low numbers. So I'm only doing 3 sets of 15, but I've started doing that, and my body has been fine. So my body no longer reacts. My body reacts more to the mental stress, for sure. That's what I notice. That's when my symptoms flare up. My symptoms, I have no issue at all with anything physical. It's all mental now. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. And because I remember, I think it was maybe the first month in the program or during the first month, one of your things that you were even a bit nervous to do was to go out and have a girls' night, or just go out in a loud environment, because there was music and different stuff. There was wine, but you were able to go out to, I guess, a social event and do a 2.5 hour hike all together in the same day. That was kind of just on a whim. So it just goes to show how different things are now than just like a few months ago too.
Yeah, wild. The girls' night was a lot. Even the venue was so loud, and even the other girls were like, you must be struggling with this. This is so loud. Like, you couldn't hear each other talk. You were like yelling to
Oh, really? It was that loud, eh?
It was so loud. We were sitting at a small table, and you could only talk to the person beside you. You couldn't talk to or hear anything that was going on over the table. And even beside you, you had to yell. It was so loud. But I left feeling fine, and the other girls all wanted to go home. And I was like, really? I'm good. Let's like go out. And I went out with one of the girls afterwards, and we went to a club, and I was still home early. I called it pretty early. I think I was home at midnight or something, but I drank way more than I had anticipated. And I woke up hungover, but normal person hungover. I had no symptom flare up, nothing. I woke up normal person hungover, and it just went about my day. So it was crazy. Like, I can't even fathom doing all these things now with no flare up and no consequences. It's pretty wild that I'm at this point, for sure. I mean, 12 months ago, I was begging even to get 10%, but even 2 or 3%, I was desperate. Like, any little thing that could give me any slight bit of life back, I was hanging on to for dear life. But here I am, and I'm sitting comfortably at 80%. And I'm like, oh God, I'm only at 80%.
Humans always want more.
Yeah,
that is crazy. That's like basically normal people things, like going to a restaurant with loud music, or going for a hike and then eating after. That's like normal people stuff. And the average person doesn't even do that much activity too. Like, they would be tired.
And I do have to remind myself of that, and Dan has reminded me of that a few times, that a lot of the things now that I'm feeling are probably normal people things, and it's hard to differentiate what's a ME/CFS symptom and what's actually a normal person thing, how they would be feeling. And so now it's a little bit skewed. I'm not really 100% sure what's what now, which is a good problem to have. But the days that I'm tired or struggling a bit, Dan's also struggling. So I need to just remind myself and be a bit kinder on myself. Normal people struggle too. Like, when we're out late and doing a lot of physical activity, or we've just got a lot going on, like, they get tired as well. Like, like, it's normal to be tired, and it's normal to have a headache, or I haven't had a headache. It's such a different pain that you get. It's not a migraine, it's not a headache. It's like this, your head's in this vice, and the pressure in your head, it's such a distinctive feeling. And that used to be one of my worst symptoms. And my POTS was out of control, and amongst everything, like the fatigue and all the rest, I had all of it. And so I haven't had any of that for so long now. The only real thing I get is the fatigue, and it's definitely so much more minor, but even there's a difference now between the fatigue and normal tiredness, and I can actually feel the difference between the two. And so to feel normal person tired is huge, and not to have the fatigue side of things. So I definitely need to remind myself of that. Occasionally a tiny bit of a headache start to come, or a tiny bit of that head pain just start to creep in. I think, but I know that's the point where I have to stop. That's my boundary. And as soon as I stop and back off, that goes away. So I don't even have that anymore, which is crazy.
Yeah. I used to always use like normal people as my reference to, okay, how am I doing? I'm able to gauge my progress. So if I can keep up with a normal person, then I'm okay. And if they're getting tired before I am, then I would always use that as a reference point. So once I started realizing I'm like, I can do actually more than the typical person, or I'm busier, or I work more, or I stay up later, get less sleep, and I can still keep up. That's how I knew I was like, okay, I think I've made it. I'm pretty sure I've made it, but I never really arrived. It was more so you keep living life and you stop and look around and you're like, wow, we're here. We've been here for quite a while. So it's interesting. And you're in that phase right now where you're in that very gray area where you're pretty much normal, and then some glimpses of some symptoms, but you're pretty much there.
Yeah, I'm pretty close. So the mornings are definitely still about the only thing that I get, that struggle first thing in the morning. And like I said, the last month I've definitely gone backwards a bit, but prior to that, my morning symptoms had gone, like everything was gone. It was wild. Like I felt normal for the first time in 6 years. And I thought, there was so many days where I feel like I've got so much energy, I could go for a run. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that would ever happen. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy ride.
Oh yeah. So what would you say to someone who's kind of in your shoes where you were like last year or during your darkest times, and they're there right now? What would you tell them? Because you were there not too long ago. What kind of inspiration or words of wisdom can you give them?
Hang in there. Don't give up. You can recover. I'm here to tell you that you can recover. Don't listen to the negativity. Don't listen to the outside noise. I'm here to tell you that you can recover. I was there. I know everybody says that you can't, but I'm here to tell you that you can. And I've seen so many stories. I've spoken to so many people that have recovered. And I'm no different to you. And I'm no different to anybody else that has recovered. Like we're all the same. We're all going through exactly the same thing. And if they can recover and I can recover, then you can recover. You just have to believe it, and you have to know what to do. And you have to commit. If you don't commit, then you'll never get out of it. You need to commit, and you need to make the leap and do it, because it is possible. I'm here to tell you it's possible.
Yeah, it is possible. It feels impossible, but it's totally possible. You just need to start gaining momentum, get around people who are talking about recovery stories or something positive. Put yourself in that environment, whether it's watching videos like this or other channels with inspiring stories, or joining a program that can help too. But it's essentially just need to change the way you think, the way you recover. Because right now it probably feels impossible because you've been told that by doctors and so many other people. I was told that too. You were told that, Nicole, but it's not true. We've seen it. And now me and you you and I have lived it. You've seen the truth, and we see it happen with other people too. Look at Max. Crazy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's the best thing that I ever did, and it made a massive difference for me, was to delete myself from all the forums. So deleted myself from all the negativity. I deleted myself from all the Facebook pages, and I actually actively went out and started looking for positive stories and recovery pages, and the amount that I actually came across was mind-blowing. It was absolutely blew my mind. And the more that I dug into it, the more that I found. The best thing I ever did was I came across the Chronic Comeback podcast, and that for me was the very first thing that I started listening to, and that was the first thing that I started thinking, oh my God, these people are no different to me. They're no different to me, and every one of them has recovered. These are not paid actors, these are real people, and they've all been in the thick of it, and they've all recovered. And that's when my mind shifted. And that was a huge shift for me and a huge reality check. And as soon as I started listening to that, I just went down this mad rabbit hole. And when I started surrounding myself in all these recovery stories, I realized like this is actually possible. And then it just clicked for me when I came across your videos and everything made sense. Everything that all these people were talking about and all these recovery stories were talking about made so much sense when I started listening to your videos. I was like, oh, it's so simple. And everything that I'd been taught 12 months ago, it was the same concept, but it was so much simpler. And for the first time it clicked. It made sense back then, but it never really clicked. And it was a bit of a drag and I wasn't fully committed to it. That's all it came down to. I just wasn't 100% committed to it. But when I put the chronic comeback and surrounded myself in all this positivity and all these recovery stories, I realized for the first time, I can actually do this. I'm not going to live like this forever. That's it. I'm done. And then I found your videos and everything changed. On that day for me, everything changed. And I showed my husband, I sat in bed for about 3 hours on that, trying to recover from a morning at the beach again, which is crazy. I spent
that wasn't too long ago, right? That wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, that was like in Feb.
Yeah, 6 months ago.
Yeah, and I showed him the videos and he 100% agreed. And from that day on, everything just clicked and I was like, this is it. This is the answer. And I knew, and that was when it all changed for me. And I think that you have to believe it. You've got to actually believe it and you need to commit, but you've also got to find something that speaks to you. And that's what I found with the chronic and with your videos. I felt that everything just clicked for me and it all made sense and everything just spoke to me in a way that I could understand it. And it's important that you believe it and actually it makes sense, because otherwise it's not going to work.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you found my page and you ended up doing the program, because I was an inspiration to you. But it's cool because just last week we had some new Thrivers on the call with you in our small group, added some new people, and then one of them was saying you were actually an inspiration to them because they were following you on Instagram. So some crazy inception stuff.
Yeah, it was so crazy. I was actually a really emotional moment. It was
in full circle almost.
Yeah, it was. I actually started the page. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever start the page thinking it would progress into what it is today. I started the page initially. I actually was thinking about it for about 12 months before I started it. And I was so terrified to start it because so many people didn't know what I was going through. And I was so terrified of people's perception of this condition. I know what people say about it. We all do. We've all been through it. We know what people say about it and they don't believe it, all these things. And I was so worried about what people would say. But I just got to a point and I ended up doing it because I felt like there wasn't enough truth spoken about it. And people said that they understood it or they wanted to know more, but they only saw what they saw when we would go out for lunch, or they would only see you for that small snippet of the day. But what they didn't realize is it took you 4 days to actually build up the energy to get to that hour function. And in that hour function, everything kicks in and your adrenaline kicks in and you look fine, but you're really not. And so I started it to give people the truth on what
you were just documenting your journey, right?
Yeah. And just try and give a few home truths about what it's actually like for both me and Dan. It's been incredibly tough on him and our family. And I wanted people to realize that or see that side of it, especially when you're in a crash, or what it actually takes to get to that point that they see. And I started it like that. And at that point when I started it, I thought there was no cure and there was no chance of recovery. So I started it almost as an outlet and an educational page.
Like almost a diary to yourself, but also venting what it's like to go through this and just wanted 100%. To share the truth. But then as you start to get better, it turns into almost like a beacon of hope, basically. And now there's like a bunch of people following you. Obviously there's people who are like, no, you didn't really have it. But then there's other people who are like, holy cow, like we watched you when you couldn't even barely leave the house and now you're going on these hikes. Like this is crazy. So it's so cool to have it come full circle. And then that person who was following you be in the same group as us and on the call. So that was probably surreal, right?
never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be here 12 months later talking about recovery when I started the page. And B, the people that I've met through it have changed my life in so many ways, having people's support. But I've also met so many people that I would never have got an opportunity to meet if I didn't start it. So I'm so glad I started it. But there's so many people that are in the program now or doing other programs like M in our group. That's how we met, was through my page, and we just happened to be in the same program or the same session. And there's been a number of people like, the ones that are in this one, and also there's been a few others that have joined the program along the way, and I talk to quite a bit, and it's crazy that that's happened. Like, I never in my wildest dreams did I think that this people would be reaching out to me asking me for advice. So it's definitely done a complete 180, and it's been a huge surprise, but it's definitely helped my journey, and it's definitely helped other people's journeys, which is crazy.
Yeah, and for everybody watching this right now, I'm going to pop up Nicole's Instagram page right here. I'll pop it up. So definitely go follow her. Just watch the rest of her journey just kind of flourish and take inspiration from it. Reach out to her, and it's been really cool watching you put in the work and go all in 110%, and then just see everything come together. Because I know it's been a long journey for you, 6 years, probably felt like 6 decades, but to have it all come together and for me to be able to witness that, I'm so grateful to have front row seats basically to it, getting all the information put together.
I couldn't have done it without you, for sure. It's been awesome.
It works both ways, right? Like, I feel like I just bring the information to the people, and then they're the ones who have to put in the hard work, and I'm just here to kind of hold you guys' hand and help you through it. But you did a lot of hard work yourself too, so it was a team effort. But it's awesome. We're just going to continue to inspire people. So last question, would you say overall it was a good decision, a good investment joining a program like this?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I did the CBT training 12 months ago, and I paid as I went. And like I said, it was one-on-one, and I got little bits and pieces out of it. And I paid a lot of money over time, but you don't realize you're paying that money over time because you're paying it as you go. And
it's like lots of small chunks, right, that add up.
Yeah. And I have spent so much money over the years. I think last year we'd estimated probably about 40,000 in just a couple of years on tests and medications and supplements. And I realized going into this that if this was a medication or if this was a supplement or anything else, I would have no hesitation at all to pay the money. And I added up how much I'd actually spent on the CBT training, and it was actually similar, but it's just that it's spread out that you don't realize. And I was thinking at that point, like, why am I hesitating? Why are we hesitating when this is the answer? I know this is the answer, but I'm hesitating. I don't even know why we're hesitating, to be honest. I think it's a lot of money, but it doesn't actually change the outcome. Like, it's actually changed my life. It's changed my life. It's changed my family's life. And you can't put a price on that. And like I said, if this was anything else, that a medication that you would take and it would cure, you would have no hesitation. So I think you have to keep it all relative. And if you think that, or you know that this is the answer, then it's the best investment you'll ever make. Like I said, it's changed my life. It just works at different rates. And I don't think put a price on that. I think it was the best investment that we ever made. Like I said, it's given me life back with my family, and I think it's given part of me back to my family.
Totally.
And it was taken away for so long, and they've got me back. So I think that's huge.
Yeah. And just seeing you come back to life over the last 6 months, because we were chatting even before you were in the program, it's been really cool to see it. And just like you said, everybody's getting better. It can be slow, it can be really fast. Everybody is moving in the right direction, and it's not up to luck. It's not up to chance. It's not up to a certain type of person. It's down to a specific set of principles. And if we follow these principles, no matter what your background, no matter how you got sick, how long you've been sick for, you're going to get better if you just follow the steps. And there's a reason it works for everybody who joins the program. So yeah, I think it's super cool to be able to be around these kind of people. We call it the Thriver community. We both got our sweaters on, but it's been amazing to see. It's going to be exciting seeing the rest of your journey unfold. And I'm sure we'll probably do a round 2 of this down the road, maybe in Hawaii or at the Thriver Summit.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah.
We need to book a date. Get it done.
We need to. I'm going to really look at it. Probably be sometime in August. Probably sometime in late August. Yeah, probably August. But
It's winter for us, so that's perfect.
Yeah, and here summer's starting to die down.
I have one goal, and this was my goal going into, this was always my goal, was to try and get to a point where I can compete in a Tough Mudder again. And so this is the first time, I think, in 6 years where it actually feels like it's achievable. So I have a goal to be able to get to that point before the summit next year. And then I can go on an epic hike while we're there.
Oh yeah, and I think at this pace, yeah, I think you'll definitely do it. So thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story. And we're definitely going to be hearing more from you guys. Go follow Nicole if you're not already on Instagram. Always lots of inspiring stuff. So if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. There's so many wins in the program now and so many people coming out with these amazing stories that we're going to continue sharing them, continue inspiring people. And always remember, you are just one mind shift away from living a life with thriving health. See you guys in the next video.